What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Random Jam's Geek Yak. Geek Yak is the show where we cover all the different topics in the geek world, such as reviews, discussions, all that kind of thing. In this series, this is part 2. We are discussing a full breakdown of the show from Marvel Studios, Wandavision. So you've probably seen it by now because this will be our spoiler episode. So if you have not seen Wandavision yet, go binge watch it because it is out, all 9 episodes. Go watch it, come back here, check out our discussion. We're going to go through all 9 episodes, break down our thoughts, our reactions, go into some Easter eggs and references that you may have missed, as well as some things that may set up things for future MCU projects. With me, I have, who I want to actually officially announce to the Random Jam team, is Taylor with us today. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Very.
I'm excited that you still don't have a TV on that wall.
I'm just going to let people keep saying that he still doesn't have a TV because there's something to talk about. Why is that up there? I don't know. I just haven't taken it down yet. I'm hopeful that one day I'll have a TV up there.
Well, speaking of TV, we're diving into WandaVision. And Taylor, how excited are you to talk about WandaVision spoilers today and break down all 9 episodes?
I have so much to say and not enough time to say any of it. I'm super excited. I mean, there are so many things to talk about, so many theories, so many little things, so many just Marvel, just so much. So, yes, I'm very excited. And I hope that the things that we pick out and talk about are things that you've noticed yourself, especially some of you Marvel fans out there. So I'm excited for it. What about you?
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited. And for those who caught part 1 of this series of our WandaVision discussion, go check it out. It's the full non-spoiler review. We kind of give our overall thoughts and reactions and things that stuck out to us that we really enjoyed about the series. We gave it our rating, which we may do again after the end of this to kind of reassess how we have processed this. But as far as our first reaction, Taylor gave it a Gem Mint 10, and I gave it a 9. So if you have not seen WandaVision, this is your last warning. We're about to go deep dive into spoilers and discuss all the amazing things that we saw in all the episodes. So here we go, Taylor. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do this. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to break down all 9 episodes. We're going to do 1, 2, and 3, then 4, 5, and 6, and then finish it out with 7, 8, and 9. So, Taylor, I'm going to pose this question to you, and we'll talk about it for just a little bit here. But what were your thoughts, reactions, and feelings about these first 3 episodes as we're introduced into this world, this hex that Wanda has created, and all the craziness, the sitcom aspect, this big concept that Marvel has just thrown at us following Endgame? What was your first thoughts and reactions?
So I thought it'd be cool. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So whatever. Film before a live studio audience. Don't touch that dial. Now in color. 50s, 60s, 70s, all different sitcoms. So I'm going to be honest with you. I was excited, and these, you know how it is with series. Every sitcom, every TV series, it kind of starts off slow because they have to develop a story and then build up on it. So I liked it personally. I like the story. I love the actors. I love the chemistry. I love all of it. But I got to say it was a little dry at the very beginning. That's just me. Hate on me if you want. That's fine. But
I'll hate on you.
I give that a reasonable understanding because it's like that with every show. They usually tell you, hey, just get through the first couple seasons, get the plot going, get the story going, and it'll be fine. I'm going to let you – that was my first thought. So I'm going to let you give your thought before we go on further with the spoiler.
Yeah, so like many, nobody knew what to expect with this sitcom idea. it was probably one of the most divisive decisions that Marvel made. But in my opinion, I think it was one of the most creative that they have made in a very long time. I know a lot of people, they started watching it when it was out week to week, and they just could not get into it. And I had to let them know, you got to stick around, you got to catch up, and keep watching. It gets better. And I think that that's kind of the
Mhm.
overall theme of the show is it gets better. Like that's how I felt from episode 1 all the way to episode 9. It just kept getting better and better and better as they pulled back all these layers. But my first reactions to these first 3 episodes, I was definitely invested in the characters that they had set up with WandaVision and the start of her own family.
Mhm.
That was something really neat that they have pulled directly from the comics and kind of given their version of it in this series in these first 3 episodes. I loved all the references to those sitcoms that they are projecting, whether that be I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke in the first episode, and then you got some Brady Bunch action in the next one, and then all the way up until the 80s with like Growing Pains, Full
Yeah.
House, and then
Yeah.
going full on like Malcolm in the Middle with like the
Office,
late
man.
90s, early 2000s, and then obviously
Ending
ending
with
up with
Office, man.
yeah, the Office and Modern Family
Better.
vibes for sure. But that was a really cool journey to go with them on,
Mhm.
and especially kind of some of the things we mentioned in our first video. All the characters with sword and the people outside of this hex kind of were experiencing all of this as we were through the same eyes. So it was all kind of unfolding to them the same way.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that was my kind of a first initial reaction to this new interesting concept, which I thought was brilliant. How they balanced those realities with the modern day reality and kind of give you a little bit of both in some episodes, but balanced it enough where it's like you get the idea, you get the concept. It's really neat, executed well, and then giving you some more behind the scenes with the modern day reality. So yeah, that's kind of my take of the first 3 episodes. So from here, unless you have something to add.
Yeah. So before we conclude with the first 3 episodes, I got to ask you, okay? So starting in the 50s, Reese McKinney, would you buy the Stark Industries Toastmate 2000?
Oh yeah, all those wonderful, wonderful commercials that would pop in there. Yeah, that
Hey,
was. Let's talk about that for just a second. So that was a really interesting device that they used through these first
yes.
couple of episodes. The toaster. They even did the Hydra Soak, which was like the
Yeah,
little
so
beach thing. I mean, not the beach thing. The bath product.
you start off with the Toastmate 2000, and then you get the Strucker watches
Yes,
and the Hydro Soak bath powder. Those are
right.
the first, those are the first 3. I'm invested. Okay, I like the commercials. I mean, it's Hydra, but you got some pretty good bath soak. So
But that was such a really really cool thing that they threw in there, and really clever too. I loved the references and the lines that they say, like with the watch. It's like when you're out of time,
yeah.
and things like that. It was just really cool, them kind of hinting that stuff in there.
Hmm.
But that's what makes this show special, is all the clever little references, Easter eggs that they were throwing in there. So yeah, for sure. So I have a couple of notes here just to kind of run down these last 3 or these first 3 episodes before we move on. Um, so with episode 1, um, let's pull out that moment at the very end of the first episode when when Wanda and Vision are sitting down at the table
Hmm.
eating with his boss and his wife, and they're having breakfast for dinner, which was very
Hmm.
funny, um and the way she kind of threw all that together was great. Um, they they get to this moment, which I loved about the show. It kind of turned into the Twilight Zone for a second, and you start to kind of see a bit behind the curtain of what Wanda is actually doing to these residents of Westview. And as they're eating, they get bombarded with questions of like, "Where'd you come from? Why are you here?" And that starts to make Wanda uncomfortable. And what's what I think happened here is when Vision's boss, I forget his name, but he starts choking. That's kind of like to distract her from trying to get these answers. So
Right.
that was the big thing for me that stuck out in that moment, and her going, stop it, and telling him to stop, and then
Mhm.
looking over to Wanda and then telling her to stop. Like that just kind of like freaked me out. It was so creepy. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that whole moment.
I think it was something that made the viewer go, "Wait a minute, is she saying stop to is Wanda trying to say stop, or is she as a victim trying to say stop?" So that's
Uh-huh.
something that made you think as well, because obviously she didn't do anything to try to save her husband. So at the same time, is it that moment of weakness in Wanda where the humanity and the mom from that '70s show
Yeah,
will
we'll call her that.
sit there. Yeah, that's what I refer to her as. But yeah, I mean that weakness in Wanda that made the humanity of a prisoner's mind break through and say, "Hey, can you stop, 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 stop?"
Hmm.
So yeah, it was definitely one of those moments. Dark theme, the music died down, I like the whole room. It just the atmosphere died down. You're just like,
Ooh.
this is a sitcom.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I'm what's happening here?
Yeah, those Twilight Zone vibes really
Mhm.
sold that. And the acting in that moment really sold
Oh,
that, like she felt like she was in danger. And then Wanda says, Vision, help him.
mhm,
So it's like she's pulling all these strings, and you can already see in the first episode that she cannot handle all this power that she has been given. So that was one of the first things. And then the whole premise of the show was kind of funny that they had this date on the calendar
mhm.
that they weren't sure what it meant. Vision obviously thought it was, or remembered that it was the day that his boss was supposed to come eat with them, and then she was thinking it was the anniversary. And then Vision is just kind of confused about everything the whole episode, which we kind of see as a theme with all of the characters that kind of come into play
Right,
throughout the show, whether they come into the hex or not. They kind of don't know where they fit in this world, especially when Monica goes in. She for first doesn't know that she is all of a sudden there. She is completely taken over by the hex and the spell that everybody's under. And even when Agnes asks, or Wanda asks her name, she just throws out a name. I'm Geraldine. You
mhm.
know, that was such a funny realization to be like, yeah, she's in there and she knows about it, but she has no idea what's happening, and she's completely sucked in there. So that was another moment. In episode 2, there was the Easter egg. I don't know if everybody saw it, of the Grim Reaper helmet and that animated WandaVision opening. Ended up not paying off for us as we thought, but it was a really cool nod
Yeah,
to the fans,
mhm.
because in the comics storyline, when all this is happening, the Grim Reaper is involved, and so that was kind of a little Easter egg. Episode 2 has the drone coming in and it turning into the helicopter toy, um, for the children, was explained over and over and over. Um, Devil in the details, that kind of was a misdirect to
Mhm.
everybody because we were all like, "Oh, that's Mephisto,"
Yeah,
or "Oh, that's
right.
Lightning," like all these different things that Agnes was doing. But yeah, all these things that I'm kind of throwing out here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I I have so many. Like it's just for one, yes, readers or watchers, we do know. Okay, yes, in the comics, it wasn't Vision's death that caused this; it was the death of her children that caused this. Or read the
Right.
comics. We know that, so don't message us about that. But yes, there a lot to it. I personally, from season 2, I enjoyed watching Drunk Vision, drunk off
Oh
of.
yeah, yeah. Episode 2 was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have drunk vision. I actually had that in my notes as drunk vision. Yeah, Dottie, it was in the episode. See, that was another character that I still think may have something to do with the witches, because it was rumored that she was maybe Clea, one of the witches that
Yeah.
with Agnes or Agatha in this case. So I was like ready for her to like pop out and be like, "I'm a witch too," but that didn't happen for us in this show. But she seemed to be a major character because of that moment with her and Wanda at the end of the episode where she gets her hand cut and everything just kind of like stops for a second, and then you hear the radio, Wanda, who's doing this to you? So like that was a big moment in those first few episodes that kind of set the stage for what was to come.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point too. I didn't even think about Clea, but at the same time, I think the only reason I probably didn't get, like, I know that they were coming out. They're still coming out with that Maelstrom movie on Hulu, or TV series on Hulu. And I think that Clea has a lot to do with the Maelstrom family first.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's maybe why it could be a reason why they didn't add her in there. So
Yeah, that's true. And what's funny is like, when this show was originally made, it was supposed to come out after Falcon and Winter Soldier. So there's a chance, because of the delays, that they had to rework the story a little bit. And maybe there's a version of WandaVision where she does come out and she's a witch, and that's a whole storyline that they may have to had to pull back or things like that. But yeah, we were thinking she was going to be a bigger character. She does reveal herself at the end of what her name is, in her whole situation. So in that whole thing, which we'll get to,
yeah,
says a lot about what all these people are having to deal with.
Yes,
especially in these first 3 episodes going through each decade. So that's all that I had. There's a lot of unanswered questions and new things brought into those first 3 episodes with all the glitches, the Wanda edits, Billy and Tommy being born, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To take note of. But let's go ahead and move on into episodes 4, 5, and 6, which was We Interrupt This Program, which gave us the modern day reality perspective of what we had just saw in the first 3 episodes. So like we were saying in the previous video, that if you get past the first 3 episodes, you'll know exactly what's going on by episode 4. So that's what that one was about. On a very special episode was the episode 5 in the 80s, which had some of my favorite moments in it and blew everybody's mind. And then you have the Halloween episode, Halloween Spooktacular, that was set in the 90s and kind of early 2000s kind of vibe. And yeah, so let's run through those, pull out some of the moments that that stuck out to us in those set of 3 episodes.
First off, sadness, because that was the episode that Monica Rambeau came in, and we learned that Maria Rambeau has died of cancer.
Yeah.
So that was that. That's one that started off opening with the whole Thanos snap thing.
Yes, coming back from the blip. Yes.
So it was definitely one of those moments where, all right, we're in a Marvel movie now, because now something's happening and we have completely taken a left turn and we're doing something else that has a vital impact on what's going on. So yeah, the introduction to Jimmy Woo.
Yeah, Jimmy Woo and Darcy start to come into the story and
Sword's big moment too. So this is whenever we were like, you remember I told you earlier, like, get past the first 3 episodes and stuff's gonna start happening. And guess what? Episode 4, stuff starts happening. So there was a lot. It's like it was just so much, because this was the episode within the episode. Because at the end of the day, it's like a show within a fourth wall break, which is the outside people watching WandaVision and then us watching both of them. So it's like definitely 2 different things you got to pay attention to while you're watching WandaVision itself. So,
and I commend them on being able to balance that, because that's definitely not easy to do. A show within a show within a show,
So yeah, definitely. We Interrupt This Program was definitely one of those episodes that you're just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, the only things I really had on that was the Sword's perspective, the blip. We get introduced to Hayward and kind of see what he's all about, which he does not come across as the goodest guy in this show for sure.
But that's also the episode that, I mean, there's something we'll talk about later, but this is the first episode. It shows that Wanda stole Vision's body this episode, which we will talk about later, that ended up not being the case.
Right.
So, and I hope a lot of people caught that too, because it's like, oh, them bunch of lies.
Right. That's the thing that stuck out to me, because that's what we believed for the longest time. He shows the footage, which was obviously doctored to fit his narrative, and saying that she did this, and we have to basically get that back, because that's not her property, which that was a crazy whole theme that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Who owns Vision? Can someone own Vision? You know, he's a very vital asset and a dangerous weapon that
Right.
could be produced from him. So like
Yep.
there was that whole debate. But yeah, I loved the introduction of Hayward and Monica
Yep.
getting thrown into the hex. You know, that was a really wild thing.
I think we need to greatly appreciate the fact that Jimmy Woo's character came out and did the magic trick, card trick that he learned from Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Because
Finally got it.
you know how that particular scene showed up all over the internet, and they were like, "Wait a minute," and like put the clips back to back, and everyone was just like,
Yeah, and that's another perk to watching it week to week is like everybody just kind of like experiences
Yeah.
it once, and they're like, "Hey, did y'all all catch this?" You know, and then everybody sees
what?
it at once, and everybody's like,
"Yeah,
"Yes."
it all makes sense." Why would he do that? Because Paul Rudd did that.
Exactly.
What? Sorry. All right, we can move on to episode 5.
Yeah. So yeah, episode 5, very special episode, which it was indeed. So do we get straight to it? I mean, Evan Peters.
Okay, so yes, and that just blew everybody's tops off, because who was this the moment that they introduced the mutants into the
Which we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get
But
to it later.
Let's talk about that moment in particular, though. What, you know, all the setup in this episode was, you know, the kids, they were aging up, which was crazy to see. I'm still not sure if Agnes was doing that or if they were doing that. I'm imagining that.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think that was an
'Cause-
unanswered question. If you're watching this and you know the reason why that they were aging themselves up, but besides the fact of getting to own a dog, because that was like the big thing. She was like,
Well,
"Well, y'all aren't old enough," and they were like, "Hold on a second."
Yeah, and break down the fact that we know that one of them only has super speed and the other one has some kind of telekinetic ability.
Exactly.
No one said anything else about anything else. So was it?
I'm going to go ahead and say that
Agnes?
was Agatha for sure, because she was all about getting the children, obviously, because we find out what she wants to do with them later. But yeah, the kids were aging up, and then as soon as they get the dog, literally moments later or a couple of days later, whatever you want to say, Sparky dies. So we lose Sparky in this episode. R.I.P. Which is a direct pull from the comics. There's a whole run with Vision and I forget what it's called, but it's a Vision comic, and there's a whole run where he's got a family with Wanda, and they got Vision kids, and then they have this robot dog named Sparky. So that's all tying into some of the comics, and in the comics, the dog dies from eating a plant in Agatha's yard that's apparently poisonous, and what it does is it like allows you to see the future or see different things that you're not supposed to or something like that. And so that's what it was like in the comics, and that's why the dog died. But we find out that Agatha killed Sparky.
Or we could assume that, because she did say, she just straight up said, "Yeah, I killed the dog."
Yeah. Yeah. Did she
kill it
want
with
to say
plants,
that?
or did she?
Right.
We don't. It wasn't funny that she killed the dog. It was just funny that that's just how she approached it. Yeah,
Right.
I killed the dog.
But yeah, okay. So let's get back to Evan Peters here, because that was the big moment of this episode. For me, my hands were like, what? Because like, and here's the thing, I had heard rumors that he may show up, that he was cast in the show, but I had no idea that he would be, posing as Quicksilver, or getting to reprise that role. I was thinking, oh, well, they're just trying to pull a fast one and they're going to throw him in there,
Right,
as another character, which we'll also get to that too. But that moment blew everybody's mind.
Yes.
And I think that was, I don't think Marvel realized the reactions they would get from people and all the new theories that would pop up. But part of me thinks they did, and that's why they did it, because that would distract us from what's really happening. So what were your overall thoughts and reactions to that moment?
I think they knew exactly what they did. I fell right into it as well with my theory that obviously was wrong, but I think they did that too. They knew that people were going to start throwing different theories out there, and then they were just going to be like, "Ha, nope," at the very end. But Yeah, I straight up, that was this is it. This is our crossover. This is the moment that we've been waiting
Yeah.
for. And they were like, yes, it is. Wink.
Yeah, the Agatha wink.
Yeah, straight up, straight up.
But that's the thing, like by that episode, it being the fifth one, that was still an open possibility, because the entire speculation of the show was like, oh, it's going to introduce the multiverse, oh, it's going to introduce X-Men and all this, and Papa Magneto's going to show up and late
Papa Magneto,
and he's going to show up and lay down the law, but that's I don't think that's, I mean, even though that's from the source material that they were pulling from, they basically just kind of used that as a diversion of expectations, to kind of give room for the story that they were actually trying to tell, which we find out by the finale.
I still think there's a chance for future.
And there's many things that tell us that there could still be a chance that we see Evan Peters' character again. So especially with the fact that he had Quicksilver's powers, he was Evan Peters. He acted very similar, talked the same way as he did in those X-Men films. So there's a chance, and we don't know. I mean, this whole series, if you don't know, if you're watching this, sets up Doctor Strange 2, which is called In the Multiverse of Madness. So we are going to get that multiverse. It may not be in this show, but it is coming. And yeah, so that was a big episode.
Yeah.
If we don't have anything else on that, let's move over to episode 6, which was the Halloween Spooktacular. So this one was the one that was set up in the Malcolm in the Middle, that really, really cool intro that really just kind of screamed Malcolm in the Middle at you. And having that fourth wall break, talking to basically us in that moment and the viewers. But yeah, what were some of the things that stood out to you in those?
I like the fact that they titled it the All New Halloween Spooktacular, for one thing, and then they used their all new costumes from way back in the day for their
that
their
was
Halloween
an awesome
costumes.
reference.
Yes, every single one of them were like spot on with as cheesy as it would have looked, and it's just like, all right, this is nostalgia. It's like I'm reading right out of the comics and looking right at the stuff that Stan Lee and them created on paper. That's it. So I think it was cool that they tied in all these different elements. Now Vision is starting to understand something's going on.
Yeah.
While I'm doing this is going on here. Is Wanda trying to hide me from stuff? And it was also the first time that we actually see that Vision fixed Darcy's mind to tell him what's going on, and then ended up not being that way. That is, no, I'm sorry, not Darcy.
Agnes. Yeah, well, I was about to say, we're not there just yet, but that was a big moment.
Yeah.
Because she asked him, when she sees him, she's like, wait, aren't you dead?
And then we end up seeing that she wasn't under any kind of mind control to begin with. So
right.
Good.
So that was
good.
a whole, that moment completely sold that she was under Wanda's control. Like, that was the amazing part. And we see that reveal, like you said, later on. But in that moment, just kind of in that episode alone, like when we saw her, just like frozen there, looking like she was trying to get out of there, and then he was no longer able to move, because that was the weird part. Like, Vision kind of is off on his own in this episode and explores the outsides of the hex, or the outsides of the neighborhood, and sees that boundary of the hex, and everything is like frozen to where it's like she's been, tying, pulling all the strings, tying everything together around her. But then, like, as the further and further you get out, the less work she has to do, And so you see the people, and that one lady that's like putting up the decorations, and her like
just
one
same motion
like,
over
oh my
and over
gosh, this is terrible.
And this is their moment to completely throw us off too, because now we're like, the fact that we see Agnes in that outer area and she's not doing anything, you're just like, obviously we wouldn't think that she's involved, because now further she is, she's not. Okay, I just thought, I didn't know who she was until she revealed herself.
Really?
Zero. No.
Wow. So that's crazy. So that was something that, doing a little research, when I heard the word Agnes, everybody had starting to put together Agatha Harkness. So it was like her name was inside of that. So so that was something I did kind of know since episode 1, with the help of some research. And I had known about the Agna Harkness character because she kind of
Mm-hmm.
works with the Fantastic Four, babysits the
Mm-hmm.
kids, and
Yeah.
is an ally in a lot of the comics. But
Yeah.
whenever I saw that, I think it was like a simple like social media graphic that like
Mm-hmm.
put that solution together. I was like, oh, well, there it is.
Well, I
But
didn't
that
see
is
that.
cool. But
So.
that is cool that you got that reveal in that moment.
Yep.
Um, so
Yep.
so yeah, that's a cool thing.
And it made
Um,
sense because Agnes, she like trained Scarlet Witch back in the day in the comics. So it's just like,
right, and
why didn't I
she's the
think of
nosy
that?
neighbor,
Why didn't I think about that?
in this
Yeah.
story that
Yep.
was created. So yeah, in that moment after she does run into after Vision runs into Agnes, he tries to leave the hex, and this is the first time that we realize that anything that's created in that hex cannot leave. He's
Right.
busting out of it. He's telling them to help, and they're like freaking out because they're like, oh my gosh, this
Mm.
he's trying to get out, but he's basically falling apart. The pieces, which are really cool, that when they show Vision and later on showing her family kind of disappearing, it's these little Tetris looking blocks, which is a straight pull from a cover of the House of M comics. So that's a really neat kind of, and we even see that later on when she builds the hex, that it's all these blocks and Tetris looking pieces.
And I'm gonna say this too. I think that was the moment as well that I started to think, I don't think that's Vision,
Yeah,
because
that was
like
the big reveal
we
there.
saw his body get taken by Wanda, but at
Mhm.
the same time, why would he disintegrate? Right.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
and
I
they
think
even
that
teased
was the
us.
moment where that's tricked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, they even teased us with that moment in the previous episodes where
Mhm.
Wanda kind of gets off track, and then she looks at him and she sees the dead body face,
Yes.
or not the dead body face, the
Yeah, it's what it
his
is. He's a dead body face. There, you got it.
hashtag dead body face Vision. But his face was the one that we saw in Endgame, where he
Mhm.
got the Mind Stone ripped from his forehead. So that's what kind of made us think, and that was a clever little placement of that one shot to think, oh well, she's just dragging this dead body around, but that's not the case. Yeah. But yeah, that wasn't the case, because he starts to disintegrate, and so he is a product of this hex, and so that opened up a whole nother layer to this. um
Go buy
and
your magic yogurt. Go buy your magic yogurt today.
exactly.
In stores now.
And then let's get um the next big moment that kind of cliffhangs us on the end of this episode here on episode 6, and that is the hex being expanded.
Mm.
So what was your initial reaction to that moment? What was going through your head
So
in that
if there was any doubt that Wanda was involved, despite her saying, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what's happening, now you know that it is not true. You know that she is
exactly.
very much involved. So, and I gotta say, I think Sword they got what was coming to him.
Oh
So
yeah.
I also think it's funny how she turned him into a circus, because that's what they are. And
Right.
and, and Darcy was just like, oh crap, gets brought in as well. So that was a big moment, because it was just like, okay, if she can't control what she's got at the edge of the thing she's got now she's got more. So
Hmm. Well,
we'll see what
that
happens.
also kind of made me think, is she about to do this to the entire world? Like, I was thinking that like in the next couple episodes from that moment, that she
Hmm.
was just going to expand it, and then that her world would become like the entire reality, or like our reality would become hers, and that everyone would be trapped. And I was thinking, wow, because then that would really show off her power.
Yeah. Hmm.
That we saw in some flashbacks, which we'll get to very soon, of how
Yes.
she got that power. So that was my first initial thought. I was like, oh my gosh, she expanded it. This could keep going. But what was interesting in talking about, you were saying her being in control, and this kind of confirming that, even Quicksilver, Pietro, when he's sitting there and talking with her in that town square at that festival, he doesn't seem phased by what's by the sitcom kind of hex that everybody's in. He's like saying, oh, you did a really good job with this, like,
Yeah.
and like kind of seeing past all of this. So it makes you think there's something more to him, that he he's not a part of this illusion, that he knows what she's doing. he gets it, and that was just kind of a moment that confirmed that like she's in control, and he's definitely not under her hex. You know, that he's with somebody else or he's
And then
on his own.
And then she yeets him across the courtyard.
Right, and then he says some things that she did not like about Vision dying again,
He
which
said, bye.
that guy just keeps dying.
Poor
He's
guy.
so good at dying.
Gets brought back, dies brought back.
Yeah.
And,
But
and that was the moment we saw him with holes in him too, because that was also the moment we were like, crap, did he really recast this guy? Because it had the holes in his body, just like
right.
hashtag dead body vision. We saw hashtag dead body Pietro. So
But yeah, but that was really, really wild to kind of see that hex just expand. So, all right, so let's move on from there, and we'll go into episodes 7, 8, and 9, which were titled "Breaking the Fourth Wall," which was set in like the 2010s or like the
2000s,
kind of more modern day. Yeah.
yeah.
And it was inspired by The Office and Modern Family, so you had that kind of documentary kind of style. Just to kind of set this up for discussion, this is where Darcy and Vision are on their way to catch, and something we forgot to mention in the previous episode, when she expands the hex, Darcy and all the SHIELD agents get sucked into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're kind of seeing the reaction to that. Darcy and Vision trying to get to Wanda, who in this episode we also get to see a little bit more on Agatha or Agnes, in Agatha, and all the different glitches that are happening. So, Taylor, what were your thoughts on episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall?
I replayed the opening twice.
That was a cool opening. It really felt like
Yeah.
that era of TV for sure.
Yeah, I think it was the moment that, oh crap, something's about to happen, because that was the moment she's trying to gather herself, and the more she tries to gather herself, the more things are falling apart. So
Yeah.
everything's all starting to come together. So I thought it was cool to see that they were breaking the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was interesting to see how she was just like, oh well,
yeah,
things are falling apart. Whatever, what am I gonna do
right.
about
And
it?
it was kind of showing her spiraling into this,
Yeah.
this depression, which is kind of the overall theme of the show was grief and how she's dealing with it. And so,
Was she adhering to, I don't know, madness? No, but no, yeah. I thought it was cool. The moment that we start to see everything come together, we start to see Vision go, okay, now I've been briefed on everything that's happened. I died and I came back and I died again. Hashtag dead body Vision. But I'm trying to get back and she's trying to keep me away. But was she trying to keep him away, or was Agatha trying to keep him away?
exactly. Right, because this is the first episode where Wanda and Vision are not together.
Mm-hmm.
They're completely separated. Wanda's
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep Vision out of the way so she can get directly to Wanda, which we do get to the point of the show where it was Agatha all along.
Yep.
And we had that fun little Munsters type song, and Taylor's mind was officially blown.
A couple of times. This episode actually got me giddy on a couple of counts, and that was definitely one of the moments as well. So, but I'll get to my other part here in a second. So
yes. But just a few other things to talk about in this episode. We had those glitches at the very beginning, like the kids were sitting there playing their games, and it went from like a modern controller to a GameCube to an Atari, and then Uno. So like,
yeah,
this is kind of start to show that she's starting to lose some of her magic from Agatha, who is known to kind of absorb other people's magic, and so she's kind of starting to lose control of her hex. But this perfectly sets up the last part of this episode, which ends up her kids went with Agatha at the beginning of the episode, and we never see them again. And she goes over to Agnes's house, Agatha, and she's like, "Where are the kids?" "Oh, they're in the basement." Well, she goes down to the basement and goes into, which which was really cool how they showed us that happened. The aspect ratio changed. I love when they did that to kind of show you the difference between her world and
Mhm.
our world. And so
Yeah.
immediately, and obviously, this dungeon basement, is a whole nother reality outside of the hex, and it's somewhere outside of Westview, Westview, and what do we behold, Taylor?
She's a witch.
That yeah, basically it was Agatha all along. And like I said, your mind was blown that she was Agatha Harkness. I
Yeah.
knew that moment, like as soon as she starts going in that dungeon, I was like, drum roll, please. And I was like, this is it. This is when we're gonna finally get to know who Agatha is, or Agnes is. And it was her all along. She killed the dog. She set up Pietro. She's been pulling the strings behind Wanda, even though Wanda has been in control of the hex. She's so enamored with the power that Wanda has and what she's doing with it. So yeah.
One more thing, and I know we're about to go into the next episode, but we got to acknowledge one important part about this
Yes.
episode.
They quickly show us something that changes the Marvel universe forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, we were introduced to Spectrum. All right, if you don't know who Spectrum is, Monica Rambeau, Spectrum. Now, she is not a mutant, but like Spider-Man, she was introduced to a mutate that changed her biology.
Right.
So she actually became Captain Marvel for a little bit. She was actually given her name by Captain Marvel. Boom. You see it whenever she tries to walk through the hex again. She starts hearing all these voices that, if you paid attention carefully, Nick Fury, her mom, Captain Marvel, just big moment, which is dope. I don't think she got as much as I wanted her to in the show, but it's not her show, so
right.
I get that. So whenever we get to the end and we talking about the spoilers at the end that reference to the Captain Marvel 2 movie, then we can talk about that. But that was huge, because if
we
you
had
don't
the
know,
introduction of Monica getting her powers, essentially.
Yes, yeah. So I don't think it just says she was exposed to some kind of reagent that modified her biology. It didn't happen this way specifically in the comics, but it
Totally
happened the
makes sense.
same way in a different fashion. So,
Right. And that's something they kind of addressed, which I think, and the reason why I said it will change the MCU as we know it, the fact that she had been in and out of that hex that many times, that when they did some tests on her, her DNA had been changed and kind of manipulated by the radiation of the hex, which I start to believe that this is how they can start to explain and introduce mutants being in the MCU, which is something that we are all just like so hungry for. We're starving for some mutants. And whether that's acquired powers, like in this case, or obviously with Wanda, who we find out has some of these abilities before her exposure to the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
This is all kind of set up in a very like quiet and sneaky way of like, there's other ways that people in this universe can get powers and abilities that we have not seen yet. So I think that was a big moment for sure, and especially them, talking about it and making it a point in the show. Definitely kind of hints that there's many different ways that people are getting abilities that we haven't seen yet, and here's how. And whether it's radiation or something that they've had, which we would call the X gene, something that they were born with that kind of is kind of opened up with the exposure of radiation, or in Wanda's case, the Mind Stone. So that's just a few things that really stuck out to me with this episode in particular, is like they're opening up our perception of what a super or metahuman superpowered person can be in this universe.
Right. Exactly.
All right, let's move on. So episode 8, previously on, set in the modern day. This is the one where Agnes completely captures Wanda and starts taking her through all these memories that she has, which were so cool to see.
Dude.
So yeah, let's kind of walk through some of those memories that she was kind of being tortured and like kind of Ghost of Christmas Past kind of walkthrough that she did, that Agatha did with Wanda. So first of all, they start out in her childhood. What were your reactions to these little flashbacks?
You know, my reaction was, I knew it. I knew it in Sokovia that it wasn't just random chance that they didn't die as children. Back of my mind says, Taylor, I know you know they're mutants. I know you know. They haven't said they're mutants yet, but you know.
Yeah.
So I knew it. And whenever she sits here and goes, okay, so young powers enhanced later, and I was like, I knew it. That's it. She had powers as a kid. This is it. The mutant gene, just like that. Deadpool was exposed later that activated his mutate gene, just like them. I get it. I mean, obviously,
these little nuggets they're dropping in without even they're saying it without having to say it.
Yep.
But they can't confirm
the rest
it yet.
is up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, so much relief, man. No, I'll say that. I'll say that one. So I think it'd be cool. Let's break them down one at a time. So the Sokovia one.
Yes.
That's what I thought was good about that one. I love the sitcoms.
Yes, they show us why she was, and basically putting all these decades together in the sitcom style, because that's what she enjoyed watching, the bootleg versions of what it looked like. He had on the black market, all these DVDs that she grew up watching with her family as a kid.
And family. I'm still iffy about that too. Back in my mind, something tells me that they were adopted and their real dad is Magneto is out there somewhere.
Oh, this is
back in my mind.
We all know that. So, they don't want to tell us that yet. They're waiting on
that.
that.
Not yet.
But for sure, they are orphaned kids or in this case adopted, because the way that, and I don't know about you, but this moment made me jump right as they're watching that the Dick Van Dyke Show. Boom, it's like, but I knew it was coming, but I just didn't know when.
Yeah, no, did the exact same thing. I watched it again with Megan over here, and I jumped the second time I watched it too, because it's like, I'm in. We're watching this show. Freaking explosion, and I was just like, ah!
They kind of gave us a little like foreshadowing with the all the stuff that was going on outside. I was like, okay, something bad's about to happen. This isn't no hunky dory sitting down watching sitcoms with the family moment. This is traumatizing. Yeah, this is a traumatizing moment in her life, and we're about to experience it. And right as my mind is starting to think of all that, that's when the boom, and
don't worry when the ceiling falls on your family. Don't worry, just sit there and keep watching TV.
Exactly. Keep watching.
This is 2020. This is 2020.
Exactly. They nailed that. But that was interesting, them showing us that, because what's wild about what the show is doing, they've taken a small little piece of like mentions from Age of Ultron, and they've stretched this out into a 9-part series that's kind of like developing her character and all these things that have happened that we've either got mentions of and never got to see. So seeing that moment with the Stark Industries missile that did not go off, which we've finally realized that she could have very well been using her possibility magic and not allowing that missile to go off in that moment, which we thought in the Age of Ultron that it was a faulty missile.
Dud. Yeah, it was a dud missile.
But what we know about Tony Stark and his products is they are not faulty. He's not Justin Hammer. He doesn't have the off-brand version. He has quality products. So for that Stark missile to not go off was a big reveal for us.
He said these aren't the off-brand stank industry missiles.
Exactly. Not Tony Stank.
Yeah,
Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool little, like, sort of a retcon in this case, where they're like, yeah, it wasn't a faulty missile. We are pretty sure that she used that magic early on. So again, the X gene setting all that stuff up in little nuggets there. But that was a big moment. Moving on to the next one, what comes after this?
Oh my gosh. Yep. Man, the freaking prison.
Yes.
The prison scene. Obviously, we see Wanda flashback to where she's in the prison cell. You see the staff holding the Mind Stone, and
Hydra.
Yeah, in Hydra's mind base. But man, so the moment you know something's going on, they have said the possibility that the Mind Stone gave them their abilities back in Age of Ultron. We all know that wasn't true. We true Marvel fans knew better than that. But but and then you see the explosion, you see everything that comes in, and then you see the vision of the perfect, spot on comic book
Yep.
Scarlet Witch
That nice silhouette. That was a really cool moment.
that made everybody's heart sink, and you were like, there it is. So I thought one of the coolest things I know. So in the comics originally, she has her abilities. They're not strong, but they're there. That's what it's. And just like this show said, hey, you had abilities. They just weren't. So instead of getting enhanced by Chthon from the comics, it's enhanced by the Mind Stone in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I love that they're adhering to the originality of what happened to her character, just in a different way. So I think it's cool that they use the Infinity Stone rather than like an old god that we haven't been introduced to yet. Because
which
if they
we may
said that,
still at this point,
yeah, we might.
Going, it's about to open up, and we could very well see Chthon show up at some point. Now that you've mentioned that,
And I think I doubt it, but the Eternals leaves room for all kind of possibilities.
Oh, for sure,
all
for
kinds.
sure.
So I think it's possible, but I guess it'd be up to them. So, and obviously Magneto gave her powers and all that kind of stuff when she was born, but that's something we don't have yet.
but speaking on that moment with the Mind Stone, and something that I think kind of ties around ties the whole series together, and her and Vision's relationship is, not only does she have a romantic relationship with Vision, based on their past, there's something about that Mind Stone that ever since she had that moment with it, that has created, and that became a part of her, that now she has that connection to a Mind Stone. So not only does she have that relationship with Vision romantically, I think that a lot of that has to do with that connection to the Mind Stone. I think if you pull away the romantic side of it, she's still going to have that connection. And if you pulled away the Mind Stone, she may not have that romantic feeling for Vision. I mean, there's some moments that we've seen in movies that have set that up, but I think that's such another layer to their relationship. It's not only do they have this romantic relationship together, but they have this piece of an Infinity Stone that binds them together.
Right.
Because we even see her when she does manifest Vision again, that it comes straight from her and her Mind Stone powers. You see a little bit of red, you see a little yellow in there, and that is what makes me think that that's where this connection comes from.
And what you said makes exact sense, because remember how we flashed back to whenever she actually saw Vision and tried to mess with his head, and she said she couldn't feel him.
Yeah.
So she's feeling through the Mind Stone. So I agree. I think 100% you are correct.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that haven't really touched on so much in the series. They've said, yeah, he was created from the Mind Stone, and we were revealed that her powers came from the Mind Stone, but that connection has to be why she's so connected with Vision and so romantically interested in him and all this stuff. Like, there's just so many layers that they throw at us that we could talk about for hours. But that's a big chunk of that episode, kind of talking about her past. And so we move on from that.
True. Yeah.
Her going into the Sword facility, her talking with Hayward and saying, I just want to see him. I just want to see him. And he's thinking the whole time, it's like, oh, she wants this body, and he's like, we can't bury, billions of dollars worth of vibranium into the ground. That's our property. And that's a whole debate. It's like, do they actually own Vision? Can they own Vision? Did they get that right from Tony Stark? But at the same time, like, he's not really a robot himself. He's like kind of a cyber being. So like, there's all these like questions and like gray area feelings about this, and she just wants to see him and bury him and have that closure. And he kind of puts his guard up first thing. It's like, hey, we're not going to let you do anything with this, because obviously we find out in the post-credit scene, which we'll get to that in a second, of what they're really trying to do with Vision. And but seeing that flashback of her there with the reveal of her not stealing Vision's body, and Hayward kind of putting his guard up when she arrived, and all the things that happened there, with her just wanting to see him and bury him, and he's like, no, you can't do that. Obviously made her upset, and she leaves the facility, and we start to see the origin of the hex.
Mm-hmm.
So she shows up, she finds that letter, which we assume that Vision left that for her, for them to, he bought that plot of land for them to build a house on eventually, because it says, for us to grow old in, V. And so she finds that, goes to that site, and then she just unleashes the hex.
Yep.
And we get to see how it all started, how that whole town of Westview is completely under Wanda's spell, all the way back into the 1950s, and we start to see how that all comes together. But what was your, like I was saying, what was your reaction to that flashback moment and showing us how this all came to be?
Like I said before, I kind of figured that Sword was up to no good. So I trust Nick Fury, but even Shield was corrupted. So at the same time, Sword's going to be corrupted too. And now last time I checked, I remember seeing in the movies Sword getting themselves straightened out. So like Shield did. So I kind of figured. And the moment I saw that, I was like, confirmed. They're up to something with Vision. I can tell that something bad's going to happen.
And that's straight from the comics too. There's the West Coast Avengers comic, when they're all trying to retrieve Vision, they see there's a panel of him flat on a table, all kind of dispersed, which that same comic sets up the post-credit scene. But continue on what you were saying there.
I think that I enjoyed the fact that they rolled from where we were before the Hex right into the first episode.
Yes.
Like the very, very first episode.
And that's our payoff for sure
payoff,
of why the
circle.
sitcom happens, where it all started.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Really not much more to say about that one. I mean, it gave full circle understanding to exactly what we were trying to figure out from the very first episode. Why are they doing this? Why?
Yeah.
Here we go. Now we have it.
Mm-hmm. And there was something amazing about her just unleashing in her, grief, and the amount of power that was shown in that moment. And then obviously the nods again back to the House of M with the little Tetris pieces blocks all coming together to build her house in this entire reality. Like, that was just amazing to see. And it was amazing to see her manifest Vision almost as he was when he was alive. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's not like he was just the person Vision. He was the exact entity with the Mind Stone powers and everything. Was wild to see her to be able to manifest that herself.
Right.
Show her true power. So
about time. Gosh.
Exactly.
We all knew it. Just show us already.
And before we get to episode 9, we are going to jump to the cliffhanger of this episode, which was Chaos Magic. Another piece that we actually kind of skipped on, but it's okay. We can talk a little bit about that. Nexus being, that was kind of referenced in, or what a Nexus being is, though the idea of Nexus was referenced in the fourth wall breaking episode, in the commercial with the depressed woman, because she was taking pills in that episode. So the Nexus idea, and then wrapping it up with, you're the Scarlet Witch. And then that was like the moment of like, yeah, that we were all waiting for in this whole entire series. But let's talk a little bit about that. So the Chaos Magic idea, which is her red Chaos Magic, and then Scarlet Witch being a Nexus being, which for those who don't know, in the comics, it's basically the Nexus beings are the ones that exist basically in one reality and can tie all the other realities together. So in this case, they're basically hinting that she is the Scarlet Witch, and maybe the reason why, this Pietro that they call him, doesn't have all the same memories as she has, is because he could very well be from another reality, or his memories of being Quicksilver that he was given, or the ones that he has, was with a different reality where Scarlet Witch did not exist, or Wanda in this case. And so that's a little bit on Nexus. You could do a little bit more research on that. I just know that there's something special about her with the Chaos Magic and her being a Nexus being.
And to just conclude with that, just to tie everything together, we know that Kang the Conqueror is going to be the next big bad. He's supposed to make his introduction in Ant-Man. He's a Nexus being as well. But one of the biggest thing that I want to hint on more is they're trying so hard to bring in the X-Men. They're trying so hard to bring in mutants. One of the most powerful beings in the mutant universe, who is also a Nexus being, is Jean Grey. So kind of there's an opportunity there. Why name drop something if you're just going to tap around with it, especially whenever there's all these plans to bring them into one universe. So something to think about as well.
I think that all these little nuggets they're dropping is going to set us up for what we're getting in Multiverse of Madness and beyond, even maybe in a little bit in Loki, because that deals with a lot of different timelines. I feel like this will feed into what we start to see there.
And you also got to realize that Odin is a Nexus being as well. So
yes,
that
was just a tiny little nugget that I had to bring up, because not only does she wield chaos magic, she is also a Nexus being in the comics, and she is the Scarlet Witch, which they have kind of created or explained as a mantle that a witch of a high level, in her case, someone who is not, traditionally trained, and she is the Scarlet Witch. So it's kind of cool how they kind of threw all that together. And even at the beginning of this episode 8, we saw that flashback of Agatha with her family and her coven of witches that she basically had to betray because they were coming after her because she was getting into some dark stuff, which we can assume is the Dark Hold, and something we'll get into in just a second. But yeah, the big reveal of her being the Scarlet Witch was massive for not only us fans, but the MCU as a whole.
Yeah, it's that moment. Boom, title card. Go ahead, roll credits. We know it.
Roll them right there. That's all we need, guys.
That's all we needed. You are the Scarlet Witch. Yep. Boom. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, and they literally just left us hanging there, and that was crazy. But they didn't leave us completely hanging, because there was a post-credit scene of something we need to bring up before we get into the finale, because I know there's a lot to get to in that part, but we cannot pass up White Vision, whose first appearance in the comics was West Coast Avengers number 45. What the funny thing is I was about to buy that book before this episode aired, and it was only a $20 or $30 comic at the time, but the speculation market was like, oh, he's definitely going to be showing up at some point in the future. We just didn't know it was going to be 2 days later after I looked at that comic. And literally when that moment happened in that post-credit scene, I saw a book auction raw for $200 that same night. So yeah, the speculation was big for White Vision, the entire series, because everybody's thinking, okay, he's going to show up. When the comic fans saw the Vision body laid across the lab tables, they're like, okay, there's a connection there. And so that's when the hype and the speculation started to build. And like I said, I had the moment I was going to pull the trigger, but I was like, I don't know. But yeah, it's now a $200 book raw.
Go back last week, please.
Yeah, but that was a huge reveal. Just a little information on that. He, in the comics, White Vision is actually from a different timeline, and he comes back, and he has no memory of Wanda, no connection to Wanda, and is basically kind of a new version of Vision. In this treatment, which we see in the finale, he is a creation from Sword by Hayward. They used the drone from the 80s drone that they had sent, got some of her chaos magic on it. That's all they needed, was a little bit of that and a little bit of Vision body, #dead Vision body, and throw it all together and create this White Vision. So I love the way they introduced him, slightly different from the comics, but I love the incorporation of White Vision. What was your reaction to that?
I had to look him up.
Really? Okay.
I've never been a really big Vision fan. So I got more interested in it when I started watching Age of Ultron and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't really a huge avid reader of Vision and East Coast Avengers and all that. I stuck usually with X-Men and Wolverine.
Right.
And
it's not a very popular series. West Coast Avengers kind of, which we may see eventually. That may be where this Vision's headed. And West Coast Avengers has those appearances of Agatha and, a lot of those East Coast heroes that we've kind of seen. So there's a chance that that might pop up, but that story, kind of was the source material for this reveal.
And good on them for bringing in a character like that too. So I'm glad that they're bringing in characters that people like me just wouldn't think about.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go, modern mainstream. And like you said, comic value,
Yeah,
interest
the
value,
comic
all of it.
speculation was insane.
It's
But
insane.
I love that kind of I mean, I missed that opportunity and didn't pull the trigger when I could have, but I think that book may or may not, spike in value depending on how they use White Vision.
Right.
But that was just a cool moment and a reveal to see something from that comic, that's maybe not as well known, show up in the MCU. And
Right.
what's really cool is that comic and the first appearance of Vision are basically the same pose with him. The first one says, "Behold the Vision," and it's got him on there, and then this one saying, "I am the Vision." Really cool, like homage covers. Or that's homage cover of the first of the early Avengers
Right.
comic where Vision first shows up. And yeah, so if you want to learn more about that and that storyline, slightly different from the show, go check that out. West Coast Avengers number 45, 46, and around those numbers is where you can get more information on that. Because there could be more to come in that storyline. We just haven't seen it yet. So that's kind of the wrap up of episode 8. There was a lot going on in that episode. 8 and 9 were two of the biggest episodes. And now here we are
Gosh.
at the finale. Taylor, walk us through the family fight, the Vision versus Vision fight, and of course the Darkhold. So take it away.
I'm going to start the Darkhold last. I'm going to save that one for the end.
Right.
But, okay. So the family fight. First off, I'm glad that Vision finally decided to take 3 episodes to fly his happy butt from the outskirts back into the main city. But, but they were like, "You were born for this." And it was like, it reminds me of when Vision was just like, "I wasn't born yesterday." Like, you were born yesterday. You were. But
wonderful line there.
I agree. So they bring in Sword, they bring in Agatha, they bring in White Vision, and everybody just fights everybody.
It's a party.
Except for the civilians of, the town. But,
right. They're all like cowardly.
Once they finally get released, then they try to go for
yes.
one.
Yes, that was an amazing moment. We
Yeah.
could touch on that for just a second. Like, seeing their reaction to being, opened up, their eyes opened up to, the reality of, oh, I'm out for this hex, and this woman has trapped us all. Like, they definitely started putting these little planting little seeds of Wanda is not going to be a hero in the future of the MCU for the time being. Like, what she did was, and even Agatha says it, it's like, heroes don't torture people.
She's chaos.
Right.
She's it.
Yeah, and that the fact that this was an output of her grief, it was a very selfish thing to do, to act out on that emotion and torture and trap all these people into this reality that she can call her home and that she feels safe in.
And it's definitely sad to think that she didn't realize what she was doing. She was doing it, but didn't realize it.
Exactly.
Or maybe she just didn't want to realize it. But I think it's important to notice that those people knew that they were in Wanda's world. And you didn't think that at first, because whenever first time Vision unlocks whoever, I can't remember who was first, but unlocked their brain. I think it was his workmate, his partner.
Yeah, his coworker.
But the very first, you're just like, oh crap.
Yeah, he was freaking out.
Yeah. So where am I? What's going on? But you're just like, oh crud. Like, these people know. It's not like, hey, it's a switch has been turned and you're living in another world. It's like, no, that's not what happened at all. And she doesn't realize that. And that's what's scary about it. But it's just chaos magic. So, what do you expect? So, but yeah, one moment Agatha's the bad guy, and the next moment Wanda's the bad guy. So you're like, okay.
And that's the perfect trait of a villain, is thinking that what you're doing is good and you have the reasons for it, and it being completely wrong or completely like just not right, just not ethical at all. Like, and that's what makes a great villain. Thanos, his idea of balance in the universe, that was his stake. And he had some good points, but his execution way off. even Killmonger, he had his reasoning for the way he was, and Loki and things like that. So seeing her kind of being thrown into that group of villains was really interesting to see, and definitely sets up her mentality for Doctor Strange too, which we believe, and what they've kind of said about it will be, um, not her greatest moment as an Avenger.
No, but we've known from the very beginning that her power that's all over the place ever since whenever in whenever they had to sign the Sokovia Accords because Wanda blew that freaking building apart, killing people.
Exactly.
It's like maybe something's going on here that we need to think about.
Exactly. And especially the way that the townspeople reacted to her.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like her, especially when she's kind of doing the walk of shame with her hood on, like, hope they don't recognize me. And they're like, yeah, we recognize you.
Everybody recognizes you. What are you talking? Your hood's not covering your face.
No, but like that's going to open up a whole nother can of worms of like, people are not going to like, super powered people. And that kind of ties into some of the X-Men storylines. If people don't like mutants, there's a group of people that are advocating against it. And the funny thing is, this whole thread ties back to Wanda, and she's basically the reason they made the Sokovian Accords, because of her. And now there's going to be a large mass of the population that will not like superpowered people because of what she did to Westview. Word's going to get around very quickly, especially people like Hayward. There's going to be more people like him that are just against superhuman people.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that. Just be like, well, why is it just her? Why is it not Tony Stark? Why is it not Captain America? Well, she's a mutant, and it's just her. So now let's just lump everyone in together.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right. You're right. Exactly
so there's that interesting thread of like her being the cause of a lot of the disruption of the way the public and the world kind of views the Avengers. You had Iron Man in the early movies, and he was like a superstar. He'd show up to the parties and he's like, yeah, I'm Iron Man, guys. And they're like, woo, and now they're all like, hey, you got to sign these papers and we got to keep you in check because we can't control you.
And don't worry, Iron Man's on our side.
Exactly. So that created a divide just from that moment in Sokovia. So there's so many things that this show is kind of answering and setting up new problems, that I really enjoyed. So back to the finale. Let's talk a little bit about. So we covered the Agnes, or Agatha and Wanda fight a little bit. The family, fights incredible style for a little bit against her. That was really cool to see. Enter Monica Rambeau as Spectrum, who we believe that's what they call her, or Photon, maybe because they've made that reference. She's gone by both names in the comics, but she shows up in a moment, takes those bullets, and freaking Hayward shooting the kids. What is that about?
Exactly what we
they
said.
went for it, apparently.
We were just like, whoa, that's not very PC, and it's not very appropriate. I hope something happens. And luckily
right, he gets thrown in prison. I think it's just that alone is taking him out. But
all it took was that
wild moment.
One line from Darcy: "Have fun in prison."
Yeah, that's all it took right there for him to start shooting kids. And Monica shows up and dodges all those bullets for him, or takes them through her body, and shows us some of those abilities that she got from the Hex. Yeah. But yeah, it was a wild fight finale. Let's go right over to Vision versus Vision. That was like equivalent to like the Superman versus Zod fight scene that I was getting. That was kind of the vibes I was getting, with like the shooting the heat ray from the Mind Stone kind of thing that they were doing, and phasing through each other. It was really cool to see him punch and get his arm stuck in there, and they really played that out well. What did you think about all that?
I was very happy with it. I love that it ended up being this big, drawn-out fight scene into all right, now it's time to have the battle of wits. So let's use some words that Taylor doesn't understand.
Oh, yeah. They ended the battle with logic.
Yeah.
Calling back to that ship that they were talking about, this historical ship. If you replace all the parts, is it still the original thing?
Right.
And they were able to kind of go back and forth with that, because Vision knows Vision, and he knows how his mind works, and he was able to kind of use that to show that like you are Vision, but I am also Vision. You know,
And then he goes, I am
I am
Vision.
Vision. And flies
Deuces.
off.
Go. I kind of expected him to. This is just me. I kind of figured, and this is what I wanted at the very end, whenever Vision was saying his goodbyes and be like, and all that kind of. I was kind of hoping for him to be like, "Hey, I know I'm leaving, but don't worry, I'm right outside." But it didn't happen. But I was kind of hoping it'd be like, "Don't worry, I'm right outside," and there's white Vision.
And we may see them reunite at some point, you know.
Yeah.
But especially since he kind of like downloaded all his information, we're going to assume that Vision lives in this new form. But aside from that, I love the way they introduced White Vision in this episode. When he first comes in there as the fight's beginning, he goes up to her, and in the comics it's very similar. She's like, Vision, you know, and in the comics he doesn't have any connection to her at all, and she's kind of distraught by that. But in this moment, they kind of flipped it on its head, and he was on Wanda, you know, like he was like caring for her. And then he goes full Terminator.
Yep.
It starts just that's what that felt like, especially when when he's crushing her head. I'm like, oh my gosh. And you hear that bone crunching sound, and then out of nowhere, you know, Hex Vision comes through, knocks him out, throws him into the RV, big explosion, and then White Vision's walking towards us in that shot, just like a Terminator would.
Yep.
And I just love the execution of that.
I thought it was great. I think it was great. Man, and I'm going to be honest with you. I love the fight scenes that Marvel does. Like, because I ended up watching – this is the difference between DC and Marvel because – and this, you hate me if you want, that's fine. I was watching the animated Batman, Superman, Doomsday, and Supergirl. And while I was watching it, I was more agitated at the fact that they were throwing more into all the things they were destroying rather than the fight scenes. Marvel goes head into the fight scenes. They're not worried about, well, let's just destroy everything and make it seem like a big battle. And it's like, no, Marvel's like, we're going to make a big battle. We don't care.
Yeah. So we're going to destroy this town.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows about Westview anyway.
But no, that's one thing I enjoyed. But yeah.
All right. So moving on, we get the big fight between Wanda and Agatha. She mentions, and she name drops it. See, we weren't sure that book that they showed us in the Modern Family episode. They like showed us a quick shot of that. It's like, you got to remember that for later. And everybody goes, that's got to be the Darkhold. That's the Darkhold. It's like, or it could be this book or this book. But she straight up pulls it out of thin air, says, this is the Darkhold. This has a lot of stuff in here that you don't need to know.
It's on the cover right here.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Like, I didn't know if they were going to bring that into the movies because the Darkhold has shown up in Runaways and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in different iterations. So this was kind of the MCU's way of saying, those don't matter. This is the actual Darkhold.
Yep.
So, but she explains to her, she explains to her, this book has things in here that you cannot practice. And what does she go and do? We see later on, she goes and studies that thing. But
here we go.
But yeah, that was such a wild moment. Name drop in the Darkhold. So that and basically changing the MCU again by saying we're about to unleash some magic into this world. You're about to see. We already know Blade's coming. You're about to see. There could be all the Marvel monsters could show up. You know, Werewolf by Night, all these different things. Moon Knight kind of fits into that category a little bit.
Yep.
Ghost Rider could show up. Like
Ghost Rider is things. See, that's one thing that I'm about to go off on the Darkhold for. Just give me. You gotta bear with me for a second, but I'm going.
All right, take it away.
All right, Darkhold, called Book of Sins, called Book of the Damned. It is the book from the Hell Dimension. If you don't know what the Hell Dimension is, you've seen Doctor Strange. You know what the Hell Dimension is because it's also the Dark Dimension that Dormammu rules. Ghost Rider fans, there was supposed to be a Ghost Rider TV show starring Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider. They got canceled for reasons that we don't know. However,
could have to do with this.
They have also stated now that Ghost Rider is coming back again, and they're going to use a different form of Johnny Blaze, not Robbie Reyes. If you didn't know this as well, it all ties together, okay? Because those of you that don't know, Ghost Rider gets his power from the Spirit of Vengeance.
Yeah.
Where does the Spirit of Vengeance come from? He comes from the dark dimension.
Yep.
Okay. He comes from a pocket universe in the dark dimension that Mephisto rules.
Mm-hmm.
All of it.
There's that guy again, Mephisto. He is going to
All
show
of
up at some point in
He's
some way.
got to.
Just
He's
not
got
now.
to.
I think that we all jumped the gun and we thought everything that moved in that show was Mephisto, and so now I think that, and that's laying all the groundwork. Doesn't give us too much in this series, but it gave us a wonderful finale that ties it all up in a bow. Tells Wanda's story, why she's the way she is. Wraps up her and Vision's story and relationship for the time being. Lots of amazing things happening there, establishing Monica Rambeau's new powers and showing us a little bit more about how they work. They showed us before the way she sees things. They've shown us all these different things. And before we get into the end of the finale, let's touch on the elephant in the room, which is Quicksilver, aka Ralph Boner. So, aka the slap to all the Marvel fans heard around the world. So, was this a trickery moment? Was this a moment to, distract us? Is that why Evan Peters was there? Is this another Mandarin situation where we, in Iron Man 3, they kind of flipped the script on us and the guy was like, no, I'm not the real Mandarin. I'm just playing him on TV, So is this a case where this could still be Quicksilver because of the powers? We saw him, the necklace was controlling him. But he ended up, the reveal being that he was just a regular guy who was trying to be an actor in Westview that was, being used as Quicksilver, or is he still Quicksilver and he just doesn't know that, so many questions there, but let's talk a little bit about that. What did you think of that reveal of Quicksilver as Ralph Boner?
I knew it was too good to be true, and I laughed my butt off. Okay. For one thing, they couldn't have found a better guy to play that version of Quicksilver or
right.
Ralph Boner.
Right. It's so weird.
No, I kind of, I don't know. The moment that she said fake Pietro, I knew they were throwing that crossover out the window. So whatever happens later on, heck, they could be going with the new Avengers comic book where they got kidnapped as kids. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Right. So I don't know.
Such a wild moment.
Yeah, I was sad, but I understood and it made me laugh. So I mean,
and it at least resolved the whole Ralph thing. The whole entire time, whenever Agnes was talking about her husband Ralph and Ralph this, Ralph that, we're all like, Mephisto this, Mephisto that, which ended up not being true. But that was a pretty wild moment because I was like, what? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, and based on some like articles or some leaks that were out at the time, that he was going to and that post-credit scene that we saw earlier when he catches Monica, that some of his first questions were going to be, oh, are you a mutant too? And that was going to set up the X-Men stuff, or at least the idea that he was plucked from another timeline and dropped into the show, which obviously didn't happen. But that's, in my mind, I thought that's where that was going whenever they were in his little man cave together, that he, once he was released from that necklace that was binding him to Agatha, that he was going to be like, whoa, what's going on here? He was going to kind of snap out of it and see her powers and be like, oh, are you a mutant too? And then that would have opened up the whole thing. But obviously that was not the case.
Let me holler at you. Let me catch your mind on this too as well.
Sure.
So in Wanda's universe, everybody has different names. Everybody has different backgrounds. Everyone has different jobs. So the people coming into the universe or who were living in Westview first could have been named something else. What if he was or is Pietro Maximoff, but whenever he got put into Wanda's universe, when the hex hit, was renamed Ralph Boner, and then whenever he got the necklace put on him, he might have been Pietro, but when she ripped it off, he reverted back to his altered mind's name of Ralph Boner from the hex.
Interesting. So you're still holding on to that hope.
I
that
want hope, but I am doubtful. But I'm trying to justify
yeah,
my,
yeah,
but
because I was
it
trying to
makes
justify it
sense.
myself. I was like, okay, well, he could still be Quicksilver because we saw him, running around. We saw him do that
Mhm.
like whole like he's got power. He literally tapped her and she
Yeah,
went and it made like a ping sound and she flew across the room. So like
it's
I don't know.
possible.
Yeah, it's just so
It
so
is.
wild how they did that. And if it was just a stunt casting, bravo to them
Yes.
for capturing our curiosity and showing us, Evan Peters as Quicksilver one last
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yep.
there's always that chance that there could be more to this, and they're just not ready to show us yet.
Ryan Reynolds is doing it. I mean, it's possible that they could pick a couple people and
Yeah,
just be like, look, maybe it's kind of like the Flash, okay, from DC. He can run through the Speed Force. He can go into different realities.
right.
And I don't know, man. This is the longest shot I've ever taken, but DC and Marvel have crossed over. It's possible that maybe Pietro can jump through time like that and realities like that because of his speed. So
Yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't be the most far-fetched thing that Marvel
right,
could possibly do.
right. And that would be a bold move for them to kind of
Yeah.
rework, um, Quicksilver as a character, just straight up like, oh, we've recasted him. He's now this Quicksilver, and you kind of move on. I don't know if that's in their plans, but that would be an interesting way to continue that story for
I
sure.
don't know. I feel like they're gonna have to explain why Deadpool Ryan Reynolds is in this universe, but considering why it's Deadpool, they might just not.
Right, exactly.
They might just
Sure.
not. So whatever.
All right, so let's get towards the end of this episode. They've finally defeated Agatha through, Wanda using those runes, which was a very
Hmm.
clever
Yes.
callback to the previous episode where she says a witch who has the runes, has all the magic. And you kind of see her purposely missing. And I was kind of wondering,
Yep.
you just have terrible aim because she's chunking all those
I thought
chaos,
so too.
bombs at her to absorb because she's like, you know what, you can have this. And
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, she's like, you know what, I'm going to give this all to you, and then I'm going to take it right back.
That's what I thought. I thought they were going to end up in like a big old vision beam fight, and then she was going to suck all that energy right out of Agatha, which is not in the end is what happened, kind of, but not the way that I
Right,
thought it was going to happen. I didn't
right,
expect the runes, but I didn't think about that like I
right.
should
And that was a little bit far fetched to me. I mean, I do like the callback there because it totally made sense.
have. Hmm.
But it was kind of like, oh, how did she have the time to learn to do that? Because that was like 30 minutes ago
Yeah, right.
in their time. So it's like bit far fetched, but it makes sense to wrap that up
Hmm.
and to show her true power and her true costume appears after she
Yes.
pulls that power back, and it is glorious.
Yes, they did a fantastic job on the modern
Hmm.
costume.
Definitely, definitely compared to the Halloween costume version, like they
Yeah, yeah,
they definitely
yeah.
like upped the ante on the
Hmm.
coolness factor for
Yep.
sure. So yeah, we get that kind of wrapped up, that story, and she basically traps Agatha inside of her own little hex herself. Once
Hmm.
she pulls the hex back and kind of traps her in her own body, in her own mind, and you kind of see the terror in her face when she's
Yeah.
transformed into the nosy neighbor again. That like she's like, I'll come back for you later. She goes, not if I see you first. It's kind of like it was like a little
Yeah.
threat hidden behind
Hmm.
a terrified,
What? And then when she says the thing, you do not know what you've unleashed.
yep,
Here's the deal: she hasn't read from the book yet. So
exactly.
what had she already released before even reading the book?
Hmm.
So golly, dude, there's so much that Doctor Strange is gonna. It's a horror movie, so I mean, it's gonna be great.
Well, and speaking of Doctor Strange, let's go back to that fight for a second. She name drops when she's talking about the Darkhold.
Yeah.
She says that
Yep.
your power is equal to or greater than the Sorcerer Supreme.
Sorcerer Supreme.
And we
Yep.
all know that was Doctor Strange, which we all thought he was going to show up in this. Another
Mhm.
expectation that was completely subverted,
Mhm.
which is okay. I think they're saving it, and there could be a version where he did show up. And they shot it and didn't use it. But I feel like that would have maybe taken away from the story that we by the end of it we end up seeing why she does everything, what all this has to do with her and Vision. And I feel like all of these theories and speculations that we've had could have muddled up and taken away from the really special series that we got in WandaVision, from beginning to end. So, and I think that they were only thing they were able to do is drop in those little nuggets and plant those seeds for all of the future series and movies that are coming out. So, that's just kind of my take on how it wraps up. So, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I couldn't have been more happy with the way it ended up turning out. So, I mean, really
Definitely
not
not a
much
happy
to it.
ending. Definitely not.
Yeah, no. I mean, it kind of seems like it is going to be a happy ending because she goes off and lives the life of Riley, but then it breaks, and you see this call back to Doctor Strange where he's doing something and his astral form is doing something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
the post-credit scene. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Well, first let's talk about the first post-credit scene, which was the scroll reveal that Monica has got more things, which sets up future film. Really well played there.
That's kind of weird too, because she does her thing, gets her powers, and then helps Wanda in the show. But a scroll shows up and says, "Hey, you've been summoned by Captain Marvel." Or technically, what she says is, "You've been summoned by one of your mom's friends," which obviously we know is Captain Marvel. So,
or some more scrolls. You never know because they were,
maybe a scroll contacted Captain Marvel from space and said, "Hey, I'm here with your friend's daughter. She just ran into this thing. She's got powers now." And Captain Marvel's like, "Send her up. Come on, we got Nick Fury up here in a spaceship. Well, why don't you come up here too?"
And I think that's where she's headed. She's headed to that sword base to meet up with the actual Nick Fury, because the Nick Fury from Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home,
was a scroll.
Was a scroll. So and so we're gonna all see how that comes together. Second post credit scene.
That's the Gideon
like you
moment.
said. She's in the cabin out there in the mountains. She's studying away, and she's powerful enough to where she can do all that work. And either her as a normal person is a projection, and it's kind of like nothing to see here kind of thing. If somebody was to fly by or investigate, that they would only see this version of Wanda, or the opposite where she's just living her everyday life, drinking her tea, and then in the back she's studying hardcore to be the Scarlet Witch.
And that's something you need to think about as well, because look, Mephisto takes that book and traps demons inside of it. He has done that in the comics. So
she's getting into some dark stuff.
How much do you think, if she reads that book, what could she be like, not exposing herself to, like, in terms of knowledge, but in terms of possible possessions by some kind of spirit from the dark dimension or all that kind of stuff? I mean, there's just so much that book alone offers so much possibility for
for sure. And then to wrap it up here, we hear which sounds like her kids saying, "Mom, help me," and that gets her attention, and then it cuts to black. So who knows what that could be? It could be her kids, which in the comics are actually spawns of Mephisto. That could be where that storyline, starts to unfold, because everything that moves is Mephisto. Don't forget that. Everything is Mephisto in this series. But that was a really interesting tag to kind of make you think that going into Doctor Strange 2, is she going to plow through the multiverse to find her kids, that we were revealed to not be real? And she says that interesting line of like, "Thank you for allowing me to be your mom." Makes me think that they might have been plucked from another timeline or another reality, So there's lots of different things that can be explored from this post-credit scene, but I was kind of blown away at that visual of like, wow, she is this powerful. She is full on Scarlet Witch, and she's going to do some bad stuff in Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness. So
we'll see.
Definitely. Well, that just about wraps up our journey on our spoiler breakdown of WandaVision. It was a long, wonderful discussion.
Yes, it was.
Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in with us. Let us know all your theories, your reactions to the show, anything that you have to share with us. Comment below. Yeah, just keep checking out our videos. Go back and watch the first one. Our part 2 is this spoiler breakdown, and part 3 will be a little bit more deep dive into some of the top moments that we enjoyed the most, and then getting into some unanswered questions that Wandavision left us with. So stick around for that in part 3, which will come out in the next video next week. You can catch all our videos Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. We stream them live for everyone to tune in, and then you can catch it also on the replay once they have been posted. Make sure you follow Random Jam on Facebook and YouTube. Subscribe to us there. Comment on the videos. Let us know what you think of this series. Let us know what you thought of WandaVision. You can follow me at Reese_MCK on social media. Taylor, where can people find you?
At Taylor Jackson, but put V's instead of A's. TV.
Exactly. It's that simple.
So, it is. Who said that?
Right. All right. So that's all that we have for you in part 2 of this WandaVision discussion. We hope to see you in the next video. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Stay geeky.